this time I'm going to be talking about a tab that I've had open for about a year, judging by its surrounding tabs. And it's funny because this is one of those tabs that I've kind of always had, I've always ended up going to for some reason or another, and never actually reading through it. So finally, I decided to look through it. And this tab is
I was
called...
to say, more like, just like every one of the tabs that we have, which is the entire premise of this show. Yes.
Well, do you ever
for
do
some
one
reason, this one's really weird.
Do you ever have the thing where you're like, oh, I got to look that up, and you type it in and then you already have a tab open for it?
Yeah, I've had exact links
read?
that I've opened up before. Yes.
Yes. This is one of those, but like 5 or 6 times. So
okay.
This is the Wikipedia list of people who have lived in airports.
Okay.
Now, yeah. Have you ever had to spend the night in an airport?
Unfortunately, yes. It's not great.
Yeah,
I think
same.
the last time I did it was Chicago O'Hare. I don't remember. I think I was flying to Michigan, and then there was some storm, and then they like pulled it, which Chicago O'Hare, like, it happens all the time where flights get canceled, especially in the wintertime. So they pulled out these cots and like had us like sleeping in these cots. It was crazy.
Had a
I was
bed?
like, I mean, it was like a weird thing in the airport that I was sleeping at, and I was like, this looks like a refugee camp. Like, this is so crazy. Like, I've never seen anything like this before.
You're not far from the truth. Like, that's, especially O'Hare, they have a lot of lodgings they have a lot of, like,
I got to experience
resources. Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, that was the last time I think it happened, though. But I'm sorry, continue.
No, I've stayed in an airport. The last time I had to stay in an airport was the night of the Dark Knight Rises shooting. Was that what it was?
Shit. Yeah.
I was in Denver.
Oh my God,
Denver
you were
airport.
there.
Yeah.
At the Denver airport?
Yes.
That's
I was
even
sleeping.
more like Illuminati. Like,
I know. And here's the thing. I got shuffled because don't ever fly Frontier, first of all. They were like, we don't have flights. Yeah, it sucks. Anyway, they were like, you got to stay over and we don't have any flights tomorrow. So I was like, oh, fine. Put me on a United flight. And sometime in the middle of the night, when that guy was shooting up that theater, they stole everything out of my bag. And everything but my clothes. So, I don't know, somebody.
Oh my God.
in baggage area. Like, somehow it made it from Frontier to United over the night, and they took everything. And oh yeah, that was a weird night.
That's in more ways than one. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's cursed.
I remember like seeing the news and being like, what? I'm just sleeping on the floor. Yeah. Anyway, that was the last time I slept in an airport. Point is, people do this all the time. And some people just end up staying forever, as long as they can. And have you ever seen, I shouldn't even ask this because I know the answer. Have you seen The Terminal?
Actually, I have not.
Weird.
Funny enough, yeah. I actually never saw that movie. I remember it. I do know, I'm assuming that you're going to talk about it. I did do like a tab dive randomly, like a little bit about this a few years ago. Because I was like, what's that guy? And it's like, oh, he's one of my people.
He is one of your people. Only you can say that, I've decided.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, The Terminal was actually based on somebody. And before we get into who these people are and why they're in the airport, let's talk about why airports and why is this even allowed? Like, because I was thinking, like, how are they not getting kicked out? And
yeah, very strange.
Do you remember when Edward Snowden was living at the Moscow airport for like 40 days back before he was? Yeah. So I always thought that it was like international waters. Like, oh, once you're in the airport, you're safe. But that's not true. Apparently, the country you're in can decide to extract you at any moment. They decided not to.
Yeah. Okay. So they're just like, we don't, because I guess I understand. It's like, it becomes like this potential tricky political situation where they're like, if they do extract you or don't extract you. Yeah.
And so Edward Snowden was able to stay there until Moscow finally approved his visa. And it's weird because a lot of times people kind of get stuck in these like not holding areas. That sounds dehumanizing. It's like a weird limbo. Like, so a lot of people, like, their passport is revoked and they find it out when they're at customs and they're like, you can't come in here, and they can't go back. So they just have to sit in this like in between area for whoever. Oh yeah. Awful. And that happens a lot where people are like, my papers got mixed up, or, oh, I don't know why they're not letting me in, or, oh, I'm a criminal. And they found out. I read a bunch.
It's so unfortunate for them.
I know. They try and try and try.
When are they going to catch a break?
So I ended up reading a bunch of stuff on international law and asylum law, and I got deep in the weeds with it. And all I have to say
now
is
you're a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer. I'm actually taking clients right now. So if you're at an airport, call me. I will read you tabs. I'll slowly read through.
That's your service. I'll charge you $300. That's the best billboard I've ever seen. Yeah. There's like all the ones of like accidents and stuff, but you're like, I will read your tabs for $300 an hour. I provide no services beyond that.
While you languish in an airport.
Yes. But I'll read them to you.
I will, and you're gonna hate it. So there's this professor of international law named Antonio Ramirez, and he says that almost everything is up to like the country that you're in, except for diplomatic missions of third countries due to bilateral agreements. So if there's some like thing going on, like say the US and Russia are both doing something in Spain. Spain is like, no, hands off. I guess that's how I understand it. Doesn't matter. Anyway,
spoken like a true lawyer. This law is not that important.
Doesn't matter. So these places are called transit areas, and they're kind of like the limbo between getting off the plane and going through customs. And every airport, and every international airport has them. So it's complicated. So
that's like the international waters sort of part of the airport that's specifically designated for that.
And if they wanted, they could go in and get you.
Chamber, like when they go to space, and there's like the little in-between area before you come into the main cabin.
Yeah, where they have to like get the oxygen in there or whatever.
Yeah, or like spray down with whatever so they don't bring like whatever outside diseases from Mars back into the colony. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, it's kind of exactly how it is. By the way, look at me. I printed it off this time.
Beautiful. We're analog people, though. That's because we grew up on writing on paper and stuff like that. We're not as digital as we might see. We're not the tech aficionados we come across as.
Oh, no, not at all. I did learn how to write and draw analog first. Anyway, so if let's say somebody gets off the plane in Spain. And I'm saying Spain because this article is from a Spanish newspaper. They get off the plane in Spain. You're right. What's that rhyme from what musical is that? My Fair Lady?
I don't know. I've never seen a musical in my life. I have no idea.
Useless.
Train in Vain is the only song I remember.
The rain
in Spain is
falls
very plain.
Mainly on the plane. Train in Vain. Great. We're playing word association now. So
so you're getting off the plane in Spain and it's raining.
And they're like, oh, you don't have your papers. Sorry. Or you claim asylum. And they're like, absolutely not. And so you just have to get back on a plane and go to anywhere else and try again. So that's kind of how you see these people trying to find asylum places. They just airport hop.
Let me ask you this. You might not know the answer to this. I'm curious. If you're like, you're seeking asylum, like you said, like you show up in Spain and you're like, well, I now have to fly to France. Yeah. For example, do they just put you on another plane, or they're like, sorry, it's going to cost you like $3,000 to fly to France now because all the flights are booked? And if you're like, I don't have $3,000, are you hosed? Like, how does that work? Do you have to do like a GoFundMe campaign to go from Spain to France? I
know there was a German guy who had a GoFundMe campaign to get him back home from an airport, but he was just he wasn't like trying to seek asylum. I actually don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah. Okay.
If anyone knows.
If anyone knows, let us know in the comments or, in
any international
Discord.
Lawyers like myself.
Of which there are many that listen to this podcast, especially now.
So yeah, it's complicated, but for the most part, airports don't have any rules against sleeping or staying in the airport. They don't have like a time limit. So even if you're not in that special limbo customs, you can still just go in the airport and sleep there. And so that's led to many unhoused people, especially in colder climates, like Chicago O'Hare Airport. They've ended up taking refuge in the airport and sleeping there in the winter, and they kind of can't do anything about it. So some of the reasons why people live in airports is migrants seeking asylum, homelessness, political asylum. I already said that. Cool. Deportation. So if they're being deported, sometimes they get stuck in that limbo as well, where it's like, you don't have your documents for your country you came from, and we're trying to get you out of here, so where are we going to take you? Ugh. Oh, it truly
so
is.
Awful.
Like, it's imagine. Mental illness is actually a big one. A lot of people just want to live in the airport, or they're running from something, like family.
Yeah.
Like or home life.
They're fleeing something. Yeah.
I'll talk about one of these people who's fleeing a government and ends up, you'll hear about it. But, and also they just feel like it. A lot of these guys just were like, I'm going to live in the airport now. Which
they're for fun.
For fun, yeah. Here we're going to get in to the notable people. There's a big list on Wikipedia, and I picked out the ones that you may have heard of already or that seemed interesting to me. So
we love it. Okay, let's hear them.
The first one is Mehran. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Karimi Nasseri, and he's an Iranian, and this is what the movie The Terminal and Lost in Transit were both based on, his story. So Nasseri, he's an Iranian refugee who lived in the Charles de Gaulle. I don't know how to say French words.
Yeah, Charles de Gaulle. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a very famous French general. Yeah, that they knew. That's like one of the main. It's Charles de Gaulle and it's Orly are the two airports in France.
Oh, okay. Well,
or I'm sorry, in around Paris, not France.
Yes,
Paris is in France, but specifically that city. Yes.
He lived in this airport for 17 years.
Jesus Christ.
So
these are terrible airports, by the way. I've been to them. They're so bad. I hate that airport.
Really?
Oh, God.
I've only been to Paris by train.
That's the only way to go. Charles de Gaulle. It's like so many Listen, I hate most airports. I have strong feelings about. This isn't like some American thing where I'm like, oh, I don't like the French airport. I will like.
No, it's all of them.
LAX can die. I hate that airport more than anything.
I'll never fly in there again. Burbank every time.
Awful. No, don't fly Burbank. Burbank's not a good option. No one should fly into Burbank because if anyone, it's like a cool kid thing. If they know about Burbank, then they'll fly. Don't fly into Burbank.
There is no airport in Burbank.
Closed forever.
They just closed it down last week. Too bad.
Yeah. Heathrow is terrible. They're all awful. I hate most airports.
You know which one I actually liked a lot was Amsterdam. It was very clean and tidy and neat and
that's cool.
Kind and pink.
Nice. Pink. Love it.
It was
Millennial
like a weird pink. It kind of was.
Cool.
Anyway, it's kind of hard to pin down Nasseri's actual story because he says he was born to an Iranian father and a Scottish mother, but there's no proof of the Scottish mother. And then he also says a Swedish mother, also no proof. So chances are he was just born to an Iranian couple in
probably
who they worked on the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. So they had ties to England, and so he was able to go to school in England in 1973. He claims he was kicked out of Iran in 1977 for protesting against the Shah, but this is disputed because there's no record of him ever having been kicked out of Iran. And he tries to get refugee status in Belgium by saying, like, I have a Scottish mother, I'm kind of European, but it's hazy and there is no record of it. And at one point he says his briefcase was stolen, which had all of his papers in it, and he was unable to fly back to the UK because he wanted to go to the UK. He was like, I'm leaving, I want out of Iran, I want to go to the UK.
I'm British now.
Though that's literally what he said. Yeah. He said, I'm British, my name is Alfred.
I have to get back to Bruce Wayne.
Sir Alfred.
I'm Batman's butler. He will not be able to be Batman if I don't show up.
British Batman's butler. British Batman's butler. That should be one of those Rain in Spain things.
You've had like 4 of those in the past 24 hours too. What did you texted me something last night that was absurd like that? It was all those T's in a row.
T's. I don't remember, but it was poetic, and I thought maybe I'd wake up still poetic, and it turns out I kind of did. Anyway,
you are, yeah. So he's got to get back to Wayne Manor in England.
Wine Manor.
Wine Manor. Master Wayne, I'm trying to get back to you from Iran. There's all
they
these
would say
thieves.
Iran.
Yeah, Iran. But I had to go through Belgium first.
Michael Caine.
Keep going.
Anyway, so he can't fly to the UK because he doesn't have his papers. And so he gets on a ferry and he's like, I'll take a boat to the UK. And when he gets there, they were like, you don't have any identification. And he's like, I'm British. My name is Alfred.
Yeah.
And he's like, they think he mailed his papers to Belgium for some reason. Anyway, there's no identification. So they send him back to France, where he came from, because that was like where he took the ferry
Flew in originally. Okay.
Yeah. And he was unable to establish any identity or refugee status in France. And so they just detained him in the waiting area. So that little like in between place. And he ends up staying in this airport for 17 years because not because he couldn't get out. Belgium was like, we'll give you asylum. You just need to, live under a social worker's watch. And he's like, absolutely not.
That's
staying in the
most
airport.
Persian thing I can think of. Just being like, I will not bow down to anyone. You shut up. I will be the person in charge of what you do. We are stubborn people. None of this is surprising to me.
Never would have known.
Honestly, he's right. Why does he need to live under someone else's watch?
Because I don't know.
There's no reason. It's racist. Everyone's racist. That's why.
Anyway, they offered and he's like, no, I'm staying in the airport. He's pretty much said UK or nothing. And France even was like, we'll give you papers, we'll give you asylum. But on the papers, they listed him as being fully Iranian. And he was like, I'm half British. So I'm not signing those. I'm not leaving. I'm not living here. So
he's very much into England. It's funny. This is the first super pro England thing that we have on our podcast.
Yeah. Weird.
Or at least this guy is very pro England.
He loves England. Oh, England's pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah. I like England.
Visit.
Yeah.
No, I do too. Anyway, so they ask his family, they're like, what do we do? And they're like, I think he's living the life he wants to live. And so they just let him live there. And he spends his days. He's not hurting
anybody. He's just hanging out.
He spends his days journaling, sitting at the bar, eating McDonald's, smoking a pipe, meditating until he's in a trance, and listening to the radio.
Dude, this sounds bro as shit. This is kind of odd. Yeah.
He lives on a bench. Like, he has his whole setup on a bench. Sleeps on a bench. And finally, he gets sick in 2006, and they're like, you have to go to the hospital.
To the hospital? Oh.
And so they take him to the hospital because he was going to die. And then after that, he was transferred to a shelter in Paris. They're like, anyway, just don't go back to the airport. Now, fast forward to 2022, last year, 2 years ago. He goes back to the airport to live. He's like, I'm sick of this shelter. I'm sick of France. I'm going to go back to my airport and live there. And he stays there for 2 months and then ends up having a heart attack and dying in the airport.
He died as he lived in the airport.
In the airport. So that's one guy. And we'll put pictures of him up. He looks haunted.
Yeah, I think living in an airport for 17 years, trying to escape a country that you came from that just collapsed, and then
completely
trying to come
collapsed.
up with. Look, as a sidebar, right? I'll just talk about this. Is like there's a generation of people that came out of Iran, like after the revolution and during the revolution, who are just like scarred, and just none of them have gone to therapy, and like none of them have like they've all just been. I can tell you this firsthand. Like
personal experience.
Personal experience. They're just like, nope, that's not a problem. We don't have trauma. No, that's not a thing. We're just push it down. And it just comes out an insane way. I mean, this guy might have very well been mentally ill in some way. Who knows? But I just mean that, like,
doesn't matter. He was probably traumatized.
Right. I'm just like, who the hell knows what this guy's life was like, that he was like, I'm British now. Like, I need to disassociate as a way to like escape this horrific shit I may or may not have seen. Or he might have been, I don't know.
Well, when the country fell, like when the government fell, it was violent and bloody and
very
drawn
much so,
out.
Yeah.
And every single person, I shouldn't be Persian splaining to you, but as you know, it wasn't just some like coup. It was a destruction of an entire society.
This was not a January 6th situation. This was like
This was like, we're gonna murder people in the streets, and then
and they did pour acid on their faces. People are just constantly getting murdered, and like it got crazy. Yeah,
and you either escape or you fall in line.
Yeah, and it still is.
Yeah. So
anyway,
yeah.
Yes, you never know what someone's going through, even if they're living at the airport. You don't understand what they're experiencing on the inside. What's going on up here?
What regime they just were. Anyway, so it's funny because I noticed that it's a trend among Iranians to live in airports because.
Oh, really?
Yes. There are a lot of Iranians who live in airports, but simply because of this. Like, was it 1978?
79 is officially when the I mean, it was bubbling up for years before it, but 79 is the year that it officially is declared when Khomeini returns.
Okay. Oh. So when the revolution happened in Iran, a lot of people tried to leave, or before it happened, they were like, saw the writing on the wall and were like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And there's several on this list that you should go read about for sure, but I couldn't cover them all. But one of them, I'm going to need help with this name. It's Zahra Kamalfar. Kamal.
Oh, you texted me. Yeah. Zahra. Zahra, yeah. Like Zara, like the place that you go shopping for clothes. Zara?
I would never shop there.
Zahra.
Zahra.
It sounds like Zahramor, which means snake poison, which is what you say. What your parents yell at you when they're like getting mad at you. Don't even ask.
Snake poison?
Snake poison. Zahramor.
Whoa.
It's cool. Wow. I don't know how to translate the context of it. It's like anyway, this is totally unrelated.
No, I get it. But, I love this. Are you kidding?
But Zahra, go ahead.
It's like in Latino culture where they throw shoes.
Oh, they do. Yeah, that's most
is that
countries.
Also?
Oh, yeah, for sure in the Middle East. So you get hit with a shoe or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. See, we just don't talk ever or address our problems.
Yeah, you just don't address the problem that never happened.
And then it just goes inward, and then for some reason, all the mass shooters are white.
It gets solved. Why. It dissolves away. It fixes itself.
What does Marge Simpson say in that one episode where her mom teaches her to like push it all down to her feet and walk around on it all day?
Now let's never speak of this again. So Zahra,
she was a political activist, and she fled Iran after her husband was executed while in custody. So they arrested, and they were activists together, and she caught word that they killed him in prison, and she was like, nope, we have kids, I'm out of here. So she and her 2 kids lived in a Russian airport for 9 months, and it was harrowing because they weren't in the area of the airport where they could like buy food and get water. So it was like their teeth were rotting, they didn't have toothbrushes, they were miserable. It was horrible. They had to sometimes drink toilet water. Yeah, and Russia's not like known for
it's not that like Brita filtered toilet water that we have here in the States. It's like
I love that. Anyway, they had no extra clothes, no toothbrushes. It was really hard. So finally Canada was like, yeah, we'll take you, duh. And so she finally gets to move to Canada to live with her brother. So everything's good. Those kids are fine. But
what year is this again, you said, for her?
Wish I knew. I think it was in the 70s.
But it was around the revolutionary time, though. It was around 79.
It may have been later. Okay. Wish I would have written it down, but I didn't. So too bad.
I know I've heard quite a lot of these kinds of stories just through family and extended family and friends.
Right.
I'm not at liberty to share some of these stories because they're not mine. But I have heard of one or two.
I want to hear.
Yeah, I'll explain them to you. Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's weird. It's like these are the kinds of stories I grew up with to an extent too. You're just sort of like,
really,
this is the kind of shit that we had to go through to get here.
Like you have like an aunt who just drops the most traumatizing thing in the world.
Oh, just casually.
Conversation.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
But then it's like no big deal. That kind of thing.
Or it depends on who you're in a fight with at that time. But if people want to pull it out of their back pocket.
No. So
anyway, no such thing as past trauma. Continue.
No, it all goes away the second you live in the airport. So another guy was named Feng Zhen. Let's see if my high school Chinese can serve me. Mm-hmm. Feng Zhen Hu. Okay. He's an economist and scholar from China, and he's also a human rights defender. So he was imprisoned unjustly for quote unquote illegal business activity. The government had no reason to imprison him. They just made that up. And after that,
I wish they would do that here to like put certain people into jail for illegal business activity. I can think of at least 5 people.
They do, but they're all just minorities and they didn't do anything.
Not those ones. I'm talking about the ones that we actually want to go to jail for doing illegal business activity. Yeah. Former president.
If only. Former president, you're right. Feng, he gets pissed off because he's like, you imprisoned me for no reason. I'm going to start writing about this. I'm going to start, defending myself. And he starts publishing this magazine called the Supervision Bulletin. And it pretty much just details all the illegal stuff the government does.
Hell yes.
Yeah, right? And the government was like, we don't like that. So while
can you just stop?
Please stop. While he was in China, he went to Japan to get medical treatment, and while there, they were like, "You're not coming back in," and so he gets stuck at.
Fine by me.
No, well, he wants to get back in because he's like, my whole life is there.
Yeah.
He stayed in the Narita airport for 86 days until China finally let him back in. But he gets back to China and they're like, under house arrest. And he's still under house arrest. This was in 2009.
Crap. Oh my God.
Yeah. And they treat him terribly. He's not allowed medical care. So he's just kind of hoping
trapped in
he's
his house?
That's
it's
awful.
This can't leave. Can't even get to go to the doctor or anything.
Worse than the airport. Another person that I thought was interesting was I did not look up how to pronounce this, but it's Turkish. Bayram Tepeli. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be wrong. Tepeli, he lived in the Istanbul airport for, are you ready for this?
Oh God.
27 years.
Oh my God.
And his story is interesting because he claims he ran away from home and the problems at home and got a job at the airport. He was like a cleaner, like a janitor at the airport, and he would sleep there. And then he got sick and lost his job and just didn't leave the airport. He just was like, this is my home now.
That's sad.
Yeah. He's very mentally ill, I think, is what they said.
Oh, okay.
The airport closed in 2019, and he moved to a different airport. He's still there.
That's commitment.
I know. He's lived in an airport for the last 30-something years.
So do you have to... Okay, but he's Turkish, so he's a citizen there. So it's like he's not there for asylum necessarily. So he's just... So how do you get... Do you have to like buy a ticket to like get into a certain area past security? And then you're in the airport?
He worked there and he just didn't leave.
Well, you said he just lost his job, right? And then he was still just living there. He didn't leave. But then in the new airport, I'm saying, does he go... Is he just living on the outside area, like where people go to wait for people to arrive? Or is he like inside the airport?
Good question. I don't know.
I wonder...
I
wonder if like, is there like a battle between people who live on the outside of security and like on the inside of security? Like, are there rivalries? Like, do the people on the inside of security think that they're better than the people on the outside?
Probably. They have McDonald's.
Do asylum
and
people
stuff.
think they're cooler than the people who are like there for like personal reasons who live? Like, I need to know about the hierarchy of
I do too now.
The social hierarchy of like how it works.
You know what?
Is this a reality show we need to make right now of like...
Yes. I would watch that. I would watch that. I would love that. What would we call it?
You heard it first. Airport drama. I don't know. The Real House. The real. No, not Housewives, but...
The Real Passengers of Istanbul Airport? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't...
That sounds insane. Okay. So here's another thing that was interesting is that COVID-19 happened and this caused a ton of issues. I had wondered about this at the time. Like, what happens when you're in the airport and the world shuts down?
Oh, yeah.
Do you go home? No, you don't.
The airport is your home.
Yeah. This German guy, Edward Ziebart, he was on his way home from India. And on March 18th, 2020, they closed everything down. And he was at this airport. They canceled his flight and he was like, okay. And he stays there for 55 days because there's no way to get home. Like, it's in lockdown. He spent lockdown in the airport.
That might be the worst. What do you, because people aren't like serving food. Yeah. Like, what do you do for 55 days?
How do you
eat?
I think they gave him food. Like, I think it was one of those things where it's like, well, it's better for you here, I guess. Like, I don't know. And if you remember, India was one of the countries that was like spiking early. So it was really scary. Yeah. And he was scared to leave. He was like, I don't want to leave. And he was worried that he'd get arrested, which he did. And then they were like, never mind, you're fine.
They're like, you're not hurting anyone here. You're just hanging out.
Yeah. Same in 2020, an Indian man, Aditya Singh, I hope that's right. He lived in the O'Hare airport for 90 days in 2020 because he was just downright terrified of getting COVID because it was still in that weird part of COVID where we were like, it was like, you remember in the fall and winter of 2020, it was just death.
Yeah.
Just so many people dying.
Spring. I mean, I will personally say like the level of, I mean, this is the same for everybody, but like some people who are more on the anxiety end of the spectrum was like, oh, it was bad. It was bad. It was
not me. Good. I'm not on that spectrum.
Yes, you were fine. You were like, I'm just gonna go around. Let's just cough on each other.
I didn't go insane or get on a new medication or anything for any reason. But yeah, so he was just like, I'm too scared to leave, understandably. And he was arrested. Finally, they were like, arrested him for some reason in 2021, and then they just cleared him of charges because they're like, you didn't do anything. Times are weird, you know?
Yeah.
I'm almost done. So there are still people living in airports right now as we speak.
Mm-hmm. As we speak, yeah.
A man named Dennis Luis de Souza. He's Brazilian. He's been living in the Sao Paulo airport for 24 years.
Wow.
And yeah, he had a rough home life. And he just decided to stay in the airport. And he does suffer from psychological issues. And he comes out, walks around outside sometimes, and everyone just kind of seems like they just let him be, which is kind of cool.
What's his name again?
Dennis Luis de Souza.
Dennis. They're just like, hey, Dennis, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Dennis, and he's like,
that's our boy Dennis. He's just chilling. He's fine.
For 24 years. Which is crazy because he started living in that airport in 2000. So he probably watched the airport go from
which 9/11 happened as he was in the airport.
He probably watched like TSA be created and all this stuff happen. And
that's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah.
Then we've got Wei Jianguo, which he has been living in the Beijing Capital Airport for 16 years. And his reason, this is my favorite guy. He said, quote, I wanted to smoke and drink without my family bothering me.
Dad core.
Legend. And then he also added that he couldn't find work. So
there's also that.
But he lives in this airport.
I was gonna say, I like how many of these people are just like, we're not talking like short stints. Like there's a couple in there, but there's so many people that are like
years.
Over 1 to 2 decades. Not even years, just decades. That's a lot of people.
That's a long time. That's a long time to live in an airport.
Man.
Wow. That's like me. I moved into an airport when I was 10 and I still live there.
You still would be there from the time you were 10 years old. Unreal.
But Wei comes out every once in a while because he is a Chinese citizen and it's in Beijing. But he does live and sleep at the airport. And then this other one, Lisa Lee Wink, she's been living in Cancun since April 2023, and she won't say her reason. So that's all.
She loves Cancun.
She loves the Cancun
listen,
airport.
People are trying to vacation here all the time. I'm just going to live here. What do you want from me?
And that's all there's a bunch more. So go, I'm going to enable everybody to open some tabs, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you had to live in an airport, which one?
Oh, that's a terrible question. Oh, I hate them all. I don't know. They're all the worst.
I'd live in San Francisco.
San Francisco's SFO is a pretty nice airport.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Oakland in forever. I used to fly into
still
Oakland
not good.
When I was I remember Oakland being okay.
I just didn't like how far
Seattle
away
have like
it
a
was.
nice airport? I feel like Seattle's airport's kind of nice, no?
It's an airport.
JFK,
No.
I don't know. I mean,
I would live in the Kauai airport in Hawaii. Have you been to that airport?
I have not. I've only been to the Big Island. That's the only part of Hawaii I've ever been to. It's beautiful. That sounds good.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, like a tropical paradise airport. Yeah. Are we still going in and out of the airport, or are we just living in the airport? Because that could also backfire and be like, great, I'm trapped in this airport where there's all this beautiful Hawaiian landscape like right outside this window. I feel like that would be worse.
I think you could leave.
I'd want it to be terrible outside so that I'm like, no, like if you're somewhere cold or like terrible or there's nothing there or like arid, you could just be like, I'm better off on the inside where there's like air conditioning or something.
Right.
And I'm like, this is great. I don't want to go outside.
Well, Chicago has cots, so.
Yeah, that's true. And I've already stayed there before. I've already given it a 2-star review on Yelp when I stayed there years ago.
Back when Yelp reviews were way more common.
Listen, for some of us, we never stopped. We still use Yelp.
Really? Wow.
Oh, it's the most old person thing I use. Yeah.
I do too. Anyway, that's my tab.
Beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, each story was like more upsetting than the last.
I know. Yeah. Nobody's in there because they're well.
Yeah. Nobody's stoked to be living in an airport.
And if they want to live there, it's because they are unwell. Like, that's... Yeah. Anyway.